board, board close to my heart. It's nice to see you guys here. You know, it's interesting because we've already passed your, I don't think it's in the packet. The one that's in the packet is what you passed, but ours matches yours exactly. So we've already passed and approved your priorities. I should have just talked slower, but we're so happy to have you. No. So how do we want to work this, council? I was going to let the board go ahead and speak to what they'd like to prioritize on this nice long list and talk about what they've been doing and where they want to go. Does that sound good? Okay, we'll throw it to you guys.
My apologies, I just got back from Anchorage. Like, my husband pulled me away from the building to drop me off. So we formatted our priorities a bit differently this year, just as kind of an exercise for the board to go through, to separate out what our priorities are, kind of in a more general sense, and then we broke it down into some specifics. Short-term goals are things we expect and hope to accomplish this year, and our long-term goals have target completion dates in the following 2 to 5 years. So, yes. Would you like to actually read through them all, or do you want me to hit the highlights?
Why don't you start by hitting the highlights, okay. And then if folks have questions or specific ones, they can backtrack to them. Does that sound good?
So in our priorities, one thing I want to note is explore and promote energy alternatives and community sustainability practices. This encompasses a lot of the work that PACAB has been doing over the last 2 years of looking at alternative energy projects that might be feasible for the city, as well as the work that we started on the climate action plan. Then you'll see at the bottom of the list of priorities in the in city code that lays out what the Port and Commerce Advisory Board is for. There's actually some very broad language. It says anything having to do with the quality of life for Seward residents. And you know, I guess what our board has decided is that we would happily be the sounding board for any of those kinds of things that may not specifically relate to the port and commerce, but everything that relates to quality of life comes back to commerce and to the business environment here. We, of course, have our close work that we do with the chamber, but we've also, in the last couple of years, looked at things having to do with utility rates and with the sewer and water system. And so if council ever has a project that they need our help with or would like to throw to the board, we would be happy to be a sounding board to have work sessions, because I know your schedules are all very full as it is.
So first on the list for the short-term goals, I saw that it's review the vessel property tax and provide recommendation to council, and I think that's on your Wednesday meeting. Is that correct?
That is on our work session for this
month. Work session. So okay.
We have a work session. What we tried to do this year is schedule so that we have a work session to discuss things and then the following meeting to take action on things.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense.
So we are planning to have a work session on it this month, and hopefully we'll be able to pull together all of the things that have been done, because I know a lot of work has happened behind the scenes on this for many years. So we'd like to kind of pull together what's already been done and see what the steps forward are. So at our April meeting, we're hoping to put together a resolution to send back to you saying this is what we recommend. These are the potential steps forward. We recommend that council direct administration in these ways, or send a letter to these people, or whatever we determine is the we think is the best course of action moving forward with that.
That's great.
Sponsoring an energy workshop for the community. Historically, the chamber put on an energy fair, which has not happened the last 2 years. And what the board concluded while we were doing our priorities is that the large energy fair that focused on vendors and bringing a bunch of people down from Anchorage was a lot of coordination work that for a volunteer board we thought might end up having us come short of what our goal was. So instead we decided that what we really want is to provide education for the community. And so with the workshop, we're hoping to partner with the electric department and with local resources, and potentially even bring people down from Anchorage, because there's so many people in this in the industry of alternative energy that really want to help sort out. So, but look at bringing some resources down to be more of an educational workshop, teaching people about weatherization and heat pumps and alternative energy that they can have in their personal homes, and the interconnect policy and how to get through that process, and hoping to make it more of an interactive workshop for people. Along those lines, evaluating options for the heat pump rebate program and presenting a proposal to all of you. That's one of our goals. We already have we have a resolution that supports that, but we thought that maybe having some more
guidelines.
Yeah, some more concrete advice and some specifics on the financial aspects of it, how the city can expect to recoup those costs. Meeting another work session with the Planning and Zoning Commission about a snake overlay, and I noticed in the packet that that's one of Planning and Zoning's continuing goals too, so I think that we're all on the same page there. Working towards developing the climate action plan. This is something that has taken a bit of a pause, but the only reason it's taken a pause is because we have this great opportunity to be part of the cohort of communities in the state that are working on climate action planning together. And the planning meetings for that have gotten delayed for several reasons, but coming up on March 19th now is the kind of the kickoff meeting talking about community climate action planning. And again, the board really felt that having these outside resources is going to be much more efficient and valuable for us in this process. So we have stopped. We've kind of stopped work on it until we get an idea of what that's going to look like and what kind of framework they need from us to move that forward. But we still have it on our radar. So we had a work session this past month discussing it ended up being the February 3rd, 2020 City Council work session with the electric department. And we're actually discussing that at our meeting this Wednesday, and are hoping to, in the future, have some recommendations. But I know those conversations are ongoing, so I don't feel that we're ready at this time to have anything concrete. But I think that it's been really helpful to take the work sessions that you've been having as council and to take and digest all of that information, come up with our additional questions, and then the electric department and finance came to that work session. It was really great to have some answers to some specific questions, and I feel like we've made some good progress in that meeting. So we're looking forward to attending and being part of the next work session that you are hosting.
Yeah, I think council agrees with that. I don't see any disagreement. That's great.
Anyone else want to read one of these
Well,
off?
if I might, I'll just spell Laura off. She was doing a great job. There's a lot here, and you can see that we've taken listed a lot of things. We don't expect to digest these things all at once, but they're sort of a laundry list, and we ask council regularly to look at these and advise us if any of these need to be upgraded to something specific, some specific issue or timely issue amongst these things needs some particular attention. They all need attention, don't get me wrong, but you know, the overall idea is that we are, as Laura said, a clearinghouse, if you will. We'd like to be that. We'd like to offer our energies towards that. We get a diverse group of people coming to our meetings. Councilmember McLean has been to them and seen. We get the perspective of the environmental community and the industrial community and the commercial users community, so that you know, we have a less formal meeting than council, so we can sometimes review these things in a more cordial way. It's still professional. So as you look at any of these things, you know, if anything jumps out and you wanted to ask us to include these in a workshop or a work session, it'd be easy to do. And Chair Snyder has tried to keep our meetings moving along because a lot of the board members have a life. They have jobs and they don't have a lot of time. So, you know, we're trying to be as efficient with this as we can. And I think she's doing a great job. I support her methods and her preparedness constantly amazed by those around me who are prepared. Because I sort of blunder through these things, hopefully with a good heart. Overall, we like to see that the city of Seward will advance commercially, and I would emphasize one thing. Quality of life, it certainly is important, but however you want to define economic importance, whether it's gathering food or hunting or working a job and getting it, that's economic importance, and our quality of life revolves around that. Those are the kinds of things that Port and Commerce Commission Advisory Board, can offer. So that's why we have such a large laundry list, but to put a point on it, the important immediate things like climate action, Seward can be in the vanguard of this.
Yeah.
And we have an opportunity to learn from other great sources and become a leader. So that's very exciting in a lot of ways. But I think we have new members of the board and some that absent members that have offered great things to the board. And again, we have a diverse view on things. And I will step back and hopefully somebody else can thank you for the opportunity to help serve the Seward.
Yeah, thank you for all the hard work that you've all put in, and I appreciate that. Will any of the board be attending the meeting on the 19th?
I will be.
Okay, I will also be there too, so I just wanted to know who's going.
You'll have to guide me through it because I'm sort of a novice at these kinds of meetings. But I represent an opinion in a group that we're not going to change climate change. We are going to have to adapt. We can do both, but we are going to have to adapt. So if it means pulling our skirts up a little bit, our pant legs, or we want to look at this, making our docks a little higher, we may have to do that.
So I just wanted to highlight a few things that are new on our list. I will skip the ones that are more the things that we do every year, but I did want to point out we did create ad hoc committees for SNCC development and for energy. Again, the effort to keep the meetings really tight is because we do meet at lunchtime, and again, as Mr. Duff pointed out, some of our board members have a lunch hour, and so we're trying to respect that because sometimes they can go 2 hours and we have people that have to leave in the middle. So in an effort to do that, we created ad hoc committees to meet separately about the issues that often take up a lot of our discussion time so that those committees can then come and report back and we can continue to meet and make progress outside of meeting times. The other thing we're excited about, and this isn't scheduled yet, might not be at the point that we're ready for this, but whenever the Historic Preservation Commission is ready, we're excited to have a joint work session with them on the Downtown Historic Overlay District project they're working on because that has a lot of commerce implications. And we've already been talking with the chamber about that. So we're excited about that coming down the line. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight here is evaluating the Blue Pipeline Initiative and giving a recommendation to council on the city's continued investment there because that is coming up for renewal. And that's something that we've been talking again with the chamber about, and they've kind of come up with some metrics. And we've been having conversations with the director of that program, trying to make sure that things are moving in the direction that we want them to be and that it's a good investment for the city. So PACAP is planning to have a recommendation for you about that at the end of this year. Other board members? Oh, and sorry, before I do want to welcome Ben Smith to the committee, and his expertise that he brings in energy is very welcome, and we're really excited to have him on board. He's on the energy committee, and I'm excited to see the work that that committee brings back to the board. Anyone like to speak or add anything?
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to serve on a board like this. Pleased that we'll do good work for the community here.
Thank you as well for this opportunity. This sort of ties into the idea if there's anything else you'd like to be worked on. The lagoon is something that I think we need to talk about in terms of our future. And I know I've brought it up in multiple times, I brought it up during your budget, but if you did ever, want some assistance, maybe a committee or something to look at the options or explore it, I would really encourage you to. This morning, it was stinking unbelievably, all over the point. So, there's definitely issues continuing with that process and that facility.
Councilmember Buckland?
I wanted to ask, I know that the SMIC development plan is here, as well as the SMIC overlay plan is there. I think there's two things that I keep hearing when we talk about development on the other side. One is life and safety, where it has to deal with fire department response time. And the other is the other lagoon on the other side, the sewage treatment plant, and how we're looking to move forward if there's more development on that side, how that's going to affect, and then how that would affect that water treatment facility, as well as the third would be businesses or connecting to utilities there, so that we could more so look at those things that kind of work together, having real bathrooms out there. I know that there's people who want to see restaurants or food trucks out there or something, but you can't have a restaurant or a food truck unless you have somewhere you can wash your hands. So that's one thing that I find a little concerning, and maybe you could focus on when you're looking towards the SMIC overlay and the development plan, on how either grants or other structures can work to help pay or develop those things and make them. We're looking for development and responsible development on that side of the bay.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I'll say is that the great thing about having plans in place is that does help with getting grant funding, showing that this is something that's a priority for the city and something that is in the language there. And of course, it's pretty vague language, but it does say that with all new development that we consider the impacts it has upon the life and safety and upon the utilities that exist there. There's also language in there about trying to find funding for expansion of the utilities. To encourage growth on that side, because it is a large burden to pay for that for businesses on their own.
You know what?
If I might, I don't want to run over our time, but the police department and the fire department have both been in the meetings we've been involved with as far as how they would protect that area over there. So they are well aware of growth and problems. I think the city will have to be the ones that will be upgrading our service. As far as the lagoon, that would be a new subject completely for us. The one that's important, that sewer lagoon at Willow Point.
Councilmember Butts?
There again, thank you guys all for being on this board. The one thing I'd like you guys just to remember too, as you go through this one too, especially in the SMIC area, is as we look at vessels being hauled out, worked on, things like this or too, and the harbor master has been really good about looking at other communities, what it costs other communities, things like this or too. Please remember when we look at that one too, we win by having the vessel here. We don't win by increasing the fees and stuff like this or too. If we can get the vessel here, get those workers here all winter long, keep those vessels out there being worked on, that's where we win. So if we can make this easier, however we do it, but if we can make it easier and cheaper than any other community, we win. So please just remember that too as we go through that.
I think we're there. I think that's where we are right now.
So I might just throw out a couple of things. Oh, and so before I do that, going back to SMIC plan, one thing I noticed is that being on the board in the past, we do publicly notice through the clerk's office, but it might be helpful in the future when you guys are dealing with SMIC directly is to invite those businesses, or at least give them the notice that you're having those meetings. And that's something that I didn't do, obviously, when I was on the board, but I think that would be just an extra step, especially with JAG doing so well. We don't want to do something that's counterintuitive to what they're trying to accomplish over there. Not just JAG, but any of the businesses.
Terry, I think you'll find that JAG is a lot more responsive than previous
Yeah,
operators.
exactly. So I want to make sure that they're involved in the process. I know Norm does a great job making sure that all those customers are in the loop, but just throwing that out there. Well, I just wanted to throw out a few things and then I'll give folks another chance. I'm glad you're working on that vessel property tax. That's a big one for me, even though it wasn't accomplished when I was on the board, just because it's been so many years. The heat pump rebate program, we've been talking about that already, so if you even came up with guidelines, that would be great. I think it's time in sewer to work towards a climate action plan, so I'm glad you guys are working on that. And I hear what you say about the, having the energy fair. Maybe it makes more sense to put effort into like a climate action plan or a workshop, getting those workshops going. Evaluating city infrastructure for future growth. And then one thing at the end of this list is provide input on the capital improvement plan, which I know we're looking at having a big meeting at the end of the summer, in the fall sometime. But even if you guys start thinking on that in the future, and maybe I'll just ask, this is such a huge list. I don't know that there's anything you want us to add to it, but if there comes a time where you want us to, say, hey, these are our top 3 priorities, I think we could bring that back to council and work on that. So I don't know if anyone else has any priorities that they're really interested in. No, it's been a good year. Honestly, PACCAB, which P&Z is here, and they have a lot of things that they have to do legislatively. You don't have anything specific legislatively that you have to do or quasi-judicially. So you guys are doing a lot of work just with the assistance of the harbor master and administration. So that's made a big difference. Yes?
I just have a quick question, based on some comments I've heard earlier. On the back page, support the work of the airport committee. Is the airport committee not done now, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know that there's any questions for them to answer. Do we officially sunset them, or?
The end of, actually, did we extend the deadline of that? It'll go at the end of the year, automatically.
Oh, through the end of the year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any active items at this point, unless there's something that comes up. Well, we still have some time.
No, I think everybody's done a great job.
Spoken like a politician. Well, we want to welcome our newest member to PACCAB and thank everyone that's been serving on the board for so many years. We really appreciate your time and hard work. For the good of the order? Okay. We'll get a slice of pizza on your way out, and it'll give PACCAB time to, or give P&Z time to come get settled as PACCAB's leaving. Thank you, guys.
Good job.
What's the, remind me?
of Planning and Zoning in front of us. Welcome. Thank you for coming. So with the Port and Commerce Advisory Board, instead of us talking, we turned it over to the commission to start. So if you guys want to lead off, we do have your draft priorities in front of us.
Great. First, I just want to start with a few process questions for the council. And maybe a little history lesson, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a state mandated commission for action for a city of home rule city. And I'm just wondering the process for us bringing forward these priorities. Always, we have come to you with a draft of our priorities, typically last year's and some ideas for this year, and then we work together to set those. But I'm seeing the advisory boards are bringing theirs to you as a resolution ahead of this work session. And are we are we working outside of the proper process? Because
So I had those questions too, and I'm not sure how we've done it in the past, but like, so we've already adopted PAC cabs before we even met with them.
right, so
HP's is tonight.
Right.
Does it just depend on the body?
It's not prescribed, that sort of process is not prescribed in code, and so.
It's just how each body would like to do it.
Right.
Okay, because I see HP's was approved on
No.
February 13th.
No, so HP's approved theirs so that it'll come to
Oh.
us and then we'll approve it tonight.
Okay, so
PAC
you'll
cab
have,
previous,
after you have their meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But the
So
other
it's-
one, you already approved the
Yeah.
resolution, so if you wanted to make changes, it'd have to come back before you with amendments. So a double process.
so it's kind of however the body would like to do it.
How would you like to do it? Would you like to meet with them before they set their own priorities? I mean, I like meeting with you before we set our priorities. So, you don't have to answer that. I'm just giving you food for thought, I guess.
I have
Anyway,
really
let's
really
move on.
thought of either way.
Okay, so under our short and medium terms, of course, we're constantly reviewing and updating Title 15, and through the process of some rezoning recently, we'll probably be looking at the land use section. I met with the borough planning director regarding if we did updates to our comprehensive plan prior to the new 2040 update, then anything we updated outside of the land use plan would have to go back to them for adoption because they adopt our comprehensive plan. So it would be a long legislative process. It would come, we'd have our public hearings to make any small changes to the plan outside of the land use plan, and then it would come to public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then it would come to the planning, or to the council for 2 public hearings, because it would be an ordinance adopting amendments to the comprehensive plan, the 2030 comprehensive plan, and then it would have to go to the borough. So their recommendation is you make changes to your comprehensive plan on the 10-year cycle. But your land use plan, which is what you can do in the zones and how you can change the future land use map, can be done throughout the 10-year process. On the bottom of the zoning maps, you'll see where you add which ordinances have changed those things. And so that's the process that we're looking at now with ground truthing the future land use map. We're actually have separated out segments of town to try to really push for public input on what they want to see in their little areas. And if you're at all interested, Jackie has the map of what we've kind of laid out at different districts, like a more commercial district, the residential district, and then the Harvard Commercial District, the industrial district, and then the Forest Acres, which is bigger land masses and resource management and in residential. So we're working diligently on that in our work sessions. And then the infrastructure development, we have done some work on that this year, and I've also noticed that Port and Commerce had added to some of theirs evaluate city utility infrastructure for future growth. So I haven't heard from them that they were going to look at that, but it's been on our priority list for several years to even go and keep our ears and eyes open with council on finding grant opportunities or matching that we can do to help with that infrastructure. But I think the plan we came up with, the Forest Acres area, is hopefully will work smoothly and we can follow that pattern.
Oh, so you guys have adopted a plan for Forest Acres?
Well, no, the Zimmerman property.
Oh, okay,
The
okay,
gateway, yeah,
okay,
that.
I see.
Oh, not Forest Acres, I meant whatever that is.
Yeah, okay,
Weed.
yeah.
Okay, well, we are still working on that, the analysis of what our lodging, dwelling, housing land uses are, and that's the part we can look at, we plan on looking at in our definitions. When you talk about somebody living in a house, it could fall in any of those three areas under land use. Dwelling, lodging, or housing. So we really need to look at that and try to clean that up so it's not so hard to find it. When you're looking for something, it took 15 minutes to find bunkhouse, and that was under housing.
Yeah,
I guess the word house was in the word. So.
we have 13 different definitions of dwelling.
Yeah.
So
And they're not together.
No,
They're-
dwelling,
it just
housing,
depends on
lodging.
who put it when. So we're working on that in that review of the land use and the table itself.
And the demographics and the economic
Definitions,
development areas. And that promoting the public interest and understanding of the plan. Once we get these different areas set so we know the addresses and stuff, we're hoping to do some sort of a request for information, or maybe a online survey or door hangers or something for that area. We will, of course, it'll be a public meeting when we discuss that area because the whole town will be interested in what's happening. But we want to really get the input from the people that live on those properties as we're looking at land use plan.
That's what you mean by ground truthing?
Right,
Okay,
right. What is there?
yeah.
What is actually there currently. And then, the communication towers, it hasn't been a big hot topic recently unless you guys have heard something we haven't. But we just keep it on the list in case somebody wants to put one in somebody's backyard. So we still really don't know. We haven't had an educational work session with a developer or any, I don't know if it's a scientist, to tell us what the future of cell towers is. You know, what is the future of a cell tower? Is it still gonna be a cell tower? Is it, what are they gonna look like down the road? Are there new ones? So, but we're keeping it on here just so that if it comes up again, hopefully we keep our eye on any of the planning and zoning information that comes forward through the American Planning Association, so.
And it's also coming forward to them on April 7th. We have an individual that's interested in doing a little education.
Okay. All right, and continuing, looking at the community needs, again, it's about the neighborhoods and what they want for growth, or what they want their areas to be like. So it's continued on the ground truthing of the zoning and future land use maps. Always the health and safety issues. I don't know, it's been kind of a different snow year, and I've noticed there's some new business owners that maybe haven't cleaned their sidewalks, and that they're new, and maybe they don't know they're supposed to clean their sidewalks. So we'll keep on top of that. It's just every year, and And then we have the junk vehicles that come out of the snow in the spring. Camping, we've kind of loosened up camping, so we don't have a lot of the illegal, or at least we didn't over the last year that I was aware of, or the commission was aware of, or that was brought forward to us. Again, number 4 is pretty much land use and zoning. And then the Seward Marine Industrial Center, the new zoning districts, we've had on ours to look at the overlay and the zoning and see what should be. And it's on short-term goals for SMIC, hold another joint work session with planning and zoning about the SMIC overlay. And then it's on their back to review the SMIC development plan. So, yeah, that's part of the planning and zoning issues that we handle. Of course, the Fort Raymond property planning and platting, really would like to see where that's going. I'm sure all of you are as well. Our educational program, the Did You Know, that is in each of our packets and has been in the papers. Is
Yeah,
it on the
and
Seward
we've
site?
had it in a couple, and then we're also putting it on the website.
On our city website. And planning and zoning commissioner training, I know that I went under the borough umbrella for a day of planning and zoning commission and learned quite a bit. And then Commissioner Charbonneau and Vice Chair Swan went for 3 days and brought back nice reports at our last meeting. And that's it, unless I think Commissioner Rosiani may have something he wanted to bring up.
I just wanted to see us, and it's in here, that we come up with the new zoning district for SMIC, but we already were approached at our last meeting and are forwarding it to you, housing, a 20-bed housing unit over at SMIC. And for JAG, that they're saying they need much more than that. They're bringing on like 100 people. So it's going to get busy over there, and there's going to be a huge housing need. So I think that's something that needs to get moved up sooner than later to figure out what's our plan. I mean, do we want to plan development over there, or do we want an unplanned development? Because it's going to develop one way or another. The other one is similar to that, and it comes under, I think, number 1 or 2 under continuing, and that's the high-density housing. We do have a need for high-density housing in our community, but we haven't really come up with where our community wants to put it. So I think as we work through some of the continuing priorities, the high-density housing is one. We really need to find where is the best place to put that and to plan that. We've put high-density housing in, or it's come into our town, but is it where we really wanted it to be? So as there's going to be a continuance of high-density housing, because there's a need, people are going to build it, do we want to have that planned a little bit better than what we've had planned in the past? Then the last one, and this, I haven't brought this up, I was thinking of this today. We do have some inventory, housing inventory currently, but we don't have a projected one. And that's something I'd like to see us start to talk about is what should our projected housing inventory be? You know, we know that Coast Guard's coming. We know that they need, I don't know, but somebody knows how many houses they're looking for. JAG is over there doing what we've been wanting that place to do for probably decades. And that's to become a viable ship repair organization. I think supporting them with housing would really make our economy in Seward more of a three-legged stool rather than 1 or 2.
Well, and I might just say, I know the Chamber has been looking at some economic forecasting and some different reports. I wonder if involving at least a Chamber director in some of those discussions might be helpful with some work that he's already done. I don't think he's there yet, but he's looking at plans to accomplish that. Because Southeast has like a Kenai you know, Cape Head. And Cape Head would be another really good resource for that.
Community Development's been working with them, we just haven't had something that we can put
Bring
together.
forth to the
commission, yeah.
Great. Comments? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about the SMIC thing. I think, yeah, obviously housing is a major issue, but they're kind of happy to solve that problem on their own too. I think that one of the biggest concerns is the fire services and safety services over there. I know that was a hesitation, just getting approval from the fire department on them getting those funds built because of those issues, and these guys are almost ready to send staff home because they don't have housing, so they need to get this place up and going. And, you know, the fire department is worried about their safety, which is obviously a concern, but I think we need to be ready to provide them with services over there because it is happening regardless.
We just need to make sure that the zoning matches that.
Yes.
Well, you know, what I'm hearing, since I'm glad we had Port and Commerce and P&Z back to back, because there's just a lot of overlap happening. So, you know, it's good because every board and commission, because we talked about, actually, Tony, Councilmember McClellan brought it up, life and safety and services over there with the Port and Commerce Advisory Board, because they're working on the same thing too. So I wonder if it's good to have these resources look at it from different directions, or do we feel like it's a waste and need to have a point person? What does council think? Or what does the commission think?
Perspectives.
Having perspectives.
Yeah. Because PACAB is looking at more the economic side, and they're looking at it, what we can put where.
From the community part.
Can I just ask one thing, regardless of who's doing the work, if they could have one point person at least let the others know, because I do feel that in some areas they are being overlapped and it's time that could be spent on another portion of that same project. If we had, you know, input from PACAB, if they had one person say, you know, here's what we're working on, then we could report it to planning and zoning and we could work on the overlay, which we've had one work session, and that work session was 3.5 hours long. You know, and out of that, we're working on doing a new overlay for it, but if PACAB's pushing on another direction of building houses and putting them here and not looking at what we're doing, it defeats our purpose.
So maybe communication.
With the different, I mean, instead of just one maybe joint work session a year, it would be nice to have a couple. And I know that PACAB has their afternoon meetings, but our planning and zoning meetings and HP meetings are in the evenings.
I think now with the increased interest in what's happening across the bay, that I'm sure our fire chief and the departments will be looking at more solutions now, and maybe that point person could be the fire chief, who could coordinate with the different commissions, as well as have the right recommendations for those people. If they have questions or recommendations, it could be handled a little bit better. I think we as a city know that that's happening and evolving, and we're gonna have to figure out how to support that somehow, because it is a concern on what's growing there, and I would love to see that diversification and the mixed uses and things that can occur on that side, but we need to make sure everyone is safe. And I think from administration's point, I'm sure that they would be looking at that shortly.
So has the Planning and Zoning Commission seen the SMIC development plan that PACAB adopts every year? That kind of, yeah, so that's a city plan that PACAB adopts, and I think we adopt it also. So that would be good to start. And then maybe, I don't know, what have you guys had come back before your body? Have you had maps looked at the different, just that work session? Have you had another?
Is it a land use plan or is it a
It's services.
economic plan?
No, it's services, development plan, docks, all those things, restrooms, fire station, all those things.
Maybe we could have Harbor Master Regis come to one of our meetings. and presenting, that would, I mean, because the commission's volunteer.
Yeah.
and
The
he's
plan's
paid.
online too, maybe I can even just get, yeah.
Yeah, can I add
go
something? So a lot of that's driven right by the private development. There's a lot of land over there that's privately held. So when you start seeing, our internally, our staff, our utilities are all pretty much aware of, how do we double the lagoon or divide it so we have capacity? What's the electrical capacity, water, sewer? Those things are all pretty much known, but the driver is, what if they, the piece in the middle, the core piece that's not developed, right, it's privately held. What if they want a housing development there, or the city owns a bunch of land over there? What if you want a development there or a retail store? Those are the kind of things that until you really have a driver of someone saying, oh, I want to build this or do this, we don't really have those capacities until we invest in them or do them. But we don't really do that until we have the need, right? So the need may be there and we're working around that, but it's really driven by the development aspect. I mean, a lot of those lands might go to industrial and just.
They already are. They're zoned industrial.
They're all in zone.
But-
They're
but
all
then-
zoned industrial.
But then around Spring Creek, right, so all that property's owned by the city. So unless the city were to relinquish ownership for development, I think the fire needs, the police needs, those things are really driven by people living there. It's already driven by, industrial accident or something happening. There are ambulance services, there is a response delay because of our distance. But until you actually have, man camps, housing, things being built, or people coming in saying, I want to develop this, and that's where planning and zoning is looking at, is it zoned for that? Do we have a capacity and ability? We have that same capacity problem, right, in Forest Acres. It's right here where you already have housing, but really you have to look at the driver as those private persons that want to develop.
Well, what I'd like to see is have some of our vision in place before those people come, so
Sure.
we're not impacting
Yes.
good development. Right now it's all industrial, but maybe there's ability to have mixed uses out there to make it more feasible to have businesses. And I think that's how PatCab might help with the industry piece and involving them, and then you can help with your expertise on planning for community, and what that looks like. Councilmember Butts?
So I came with kind of one question tonight too. By the way, thank you, all of you, for being on this commission. And you might be able to remind me there, Cindy, because of your history on there too, is the bench area. We've talked about years and years and years ago of trying to find some way that maybe a start in that bench area is we can make a subdivision or make a zoning, because right now I believe it's all under resource management. Yeah, and that whole big area up there, it's like 1,800 acres. I mean, but we can take that portion of it to where it can be developed and turn that into, and just at least zone that out to something different than just resource management.
Well, when we're looking at that land use table, which is like 8 pages long, that says what's allowed in each zone, we can look at what's allowed in resource management. And if it does not allow any residential, then we'll make a proposal of what residential type it could go to and how much of it we should put it to. And then what we need is the geographical plan on what
Where the
could
access,
you get to?
yeah,
You
the
know,
access
how,
piece.
how would you access, and that would be the first portion.
And so, I'm sorry, so remind me, if we change that zoning, that changes the zoning to that entire parcel, or we can just change a portion of that parcel?
We can change a portion.
We could subdivide it and
Yeah, because there's a lot of it that's
yeah,
not,
you could.
it's way up the mountain too, but there's a lot of flat land up there too, and after, when I was on planning and zoning, the council had admonished us to try to find some way to develop that area. And after that, I did take a hike up there to a couple different areas. And yeah, there's a lot of flat land up there, but there's only very few ways to get there.
Yeah.
And so whether it's coming from the south end or the north end, either way of trying to get up there. So I don't know, but this is an area that the city owns. It's developable land. So maybe it's something else that we can look into.
And Councilmember Butts, that was something that was discussed during the P and Z PACAB work session where we were talking about doing a new SMIC overlay, the bench was brought up multiple times in that. I mean, it's
Okay.
in that, and the reason being is because with the SMIC overlay, changing it so it has its own zoning. So you'll still have your industrial areas and maybe the outer lying areas will be able to have subdivisions and housing. We incorporated that. So that's when she's talking about land use and rezoning, we would have a SMIC zoning area. So it would be its own chart on the table, so.
And we would have that,
Mhm.
that area into that one too, okay? Because I think most time we just have that small
Yeah, they just
inset.
normally have this big square, and then we talked about adding the bench portion for housing and subdivisions like you had just mentioned. So
Okay.
it would be incorporated in that SMIC side and that table.
Okay.
So I might say with the Know Your Code, I was at a sustainable tourism meeting in the community and someone mentioned the comp plan and everyone was like, what is this comp plan you speak of? So I think it would be good to, you know, it would be fun to highlight the comp plan and let people know it's out there because I know that there's some, you know, there's good stuff in there regardless of the process. There's some really good goals and objectives and it would be great to get that out to the community. Go ahead.
In relation to that as well, with the future meetings and the like divided subdivision areas that we're thinking about going for ground truthing, and I don't think there's going to be any good answer now. But how do we get people excited about planning and zoning to participate in that process?
What?
Where
I mean, it's super sexy, but
Just moving something in that isn't there.
gravel pits, anyone?
Gravel pits.
You'll get them coming out.
I know just with the participation of a few things that I would love to see more participation in that and maybe some kind of initiative with the community development to get people more interested in participating in that. And any way I can help.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Great to have a full commission.
So are there any, yep,
Well,
Councilmembers?
it's not, nothing really important, but I'm Cheryl, and I don't know who you are. This
Oh.
gentleman right here.
Nathaniel and Annie.
Oh, I know Andy and I know Craig, but I don't know this gentleman.
Nathaniel.
Daniel Charbonneau.
What's the last name?
Charbonneau.
Sure, how do you spell it out?
CHARBONNEAU.
Okay, thank you.
And we're missing one commissioner tonight, that's Kelly Hatfield, but normally.
Yes, Kelly, I forgot her, yeah. Okay.
Great, well, planning and zoning does very good work, and, you know, as council knows, there's specific jobs that you have to do prescriptively, so we thank you for that,
I thank you too.
and your hard work, yep. Anything else from you guys?
Vice Chair Wong, did you have anything, did you get a chance to look at what was presented as our ongoing,
Oh, I guess specific to that Seward Marine Industrial Center new zoning district, I did say joint meeting with PACAB, and I know you've already held one, but maybe that should be, exchange of information with PACAB somehow, or,
And I'd just like to say that now that we're hopefully having a full staff in community development, there will be more input with PACAB being able to be involved in those, so we can help to fix that divide, but.
because there's the ADA plan for you guys to look at from years ago, and then that SMIC development plan, and then using NORM as a resource.
I just think it's really important when we're talking plans, especially when it's dealing with land development, that planning and zoning gets a chance to review them before they come to council, because we've had that, and, you know, I'll just put it out there, we had that with the historic plan. It came to you guys, planning and zoning never got a chance to review it. And then we were asked to review it after you had already approved it,
Well, I
so.
think that SMIC plan's been at least 20 years.
Yeah,
So I think
so-
it's pretty specific to, you know, infrastructure over there and specific development that the harbor masters, you know, kind
Correct.
of the keeper of.
But if
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
changing a zoning, then it would be really good, and we'll make sure it's incorporated in the next packet so they can get their hands on it.
You mentioned the ADA plan, it is part of what we looked at, but we haven't looked at it in a while, so did you want us to add that to one of these goals to review the ADA.
I don't know
fund.
where we are with that.
So we probably
I mean,
should-
that would be very helpful.
It's important.
Yeah, it is important.
It's kind of lost, so.
Well, I like it. A couple of us just went up to the Alaska Planning and Zoning training one day, and then we had the APA conference after. I can't tell you how informative that was.
Oh, good.
And especially the first day of the training, I could go to that every year. I've done it twice, and I just walk away going like, oh my goodness, there's so many more things that we can be doing better and stuff like that. So I encourage you to make sure there's funds available for the members of us that can go to that. One day.
That's a good reminder. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Next.
So make me feel like I can call Batman if I need to.
Have you seen that?
That's what I was saying, I like being on camera.
Yeah, it's kind of,
Butt sounds much more.
Never know what he's gonna come up with. Run into it.
yeah, I didn't want to back the charity up.
And we have the Historic Preservation Commission in front of us. Are you on that board?
No, I just want to ask one question though. Is there a place for the individuals out here to speak?
We can have you speak when we're all done with this one. Okay. So who is the chair of your board? Yay! Would you, so the last couple times, and we can do it, per each commission, but the last PACCAB and then P&Z, we kind of threw it over to the commission to talk about what you've been doing, talk about your resolution for your priorities are on our agenda tonight, but they match what you adopted already. So I don't know if you want to go through there and highlight those and talk about some of the items, if that works for you.
Well, I think that we submitted what we've already done in 219 earlier, last year. So what we have tonight is what we planned for this year.
Great.
Priorities and goals for 2021. So, annual reporting to the council. So I believe we do our annual review, and I think it's submitted to you in November or December for your review. And then this is actually due to you in February. We did apply for our CLG. This is our second go around, and it looks good. I mean, they were very happy with it. So our fingers are crossed, and we're hoping that that comes through. Yes.
Commissioner LeBrecq was the leader on that particular grant, and I helped. I write a lot, talk a lot. What we did was we submitted a grant. We identified 25 historic sites in Seward, And what we want, Commissioner LeBrecq owns the cable house. And in front of there is a plaque, informational plaque. And Commissioner LeBrecq is also very close to the people that run the buses through Seward. And so the way he explained it to me was, the bus companies would like to pull up in front of the Sea Life Center, say, go to Sweet Darlings for our ice cream, see the Sea Life Center, and here's a map to historic Seward, which we currently don't have updated. So we've identified 25 properties. We'll work with the owners, and the money in the grant is for the plaques to identify the history and the importance of the site, and there will be maps printed. I've done a couple of presentations around town to Rotary and other planning and zoning, and a lot of people are real interested as part of the historic tourism, and we have quite a bit of history in this town.
Good, that's
And I don't
nice.
think we promote it enough.
No, that's wonderful to have an open venue option like that. That's great.
But anyway, that's, Commissioner LeBrecq is on the Red Cross, or part of the Red Cross, and he's in Juneau. I'm assuming it's for coronavirus.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, and then we have our annual report that actually goes to the state. And so we'd like to pick up our public outreach this year. A couple of things that we want to do a better job of is historic preservation. We celebrate that the month of May. So we'd like to do an evening at the library, and we're looking for a couple of people to share their history and knowledge of local history. And then in August, we want to celebrate the Rockford Kent.
Rockwell.
I always get this messed up.
Rockwell Kent.
Rockwell Kent,
Rockwell.
yes. And his history here in Seward.
Yeah.
And Fox Island. So we're kind of excited about that. So Sue, who's vice chair, she can fill you in on our historic preservation, or rather historic overlay, which we're hoping to work with P&Z on, and that's one of the other land use areas we want identified. So
What Iris Darling and I did last summer was we called Juneau. They have a pretty vibrant downtown, and we called and got their guidelines. And not only did we get their guidelines, we got an editable version and their permission to take whatever we needed for Seward. So Iris and I did that. And so I'm working on doing a edit of it, because again, we cut and paste. So I'm going through it right now to make sure that all of Juneau's out and all of Seward is in, and that sentences actually don't end in the middle and start in the middle somewhere else. So, and I would like to compliment the city clerks, because they've looked at the formatting. And so we actually went around town and took pictures. So we did have a meeting with planning and zoning, a preliminary meeting. I did a presentation to them, because I understand what happened, and this is all part of the Seward Historic Preservation Plan of 2017 that was approved by this council, but stepped on some toes. So we are not going to do that, but Chapter 8 of that particular document says we'll work with planning and zoning, and we will develop a historic overlay. So we're in the process of doing that. We've had a meeting with planning and zoning. I was just chatting with Jackie. We're trying to get up front. I want to get a meeting with the building code people, the fire department, because I don't want to run into any conflicts in terms of how you present signs. When I did research at the National Historic level, they're basically guidelines. They're not any real strong codes, so I want to go to our code people and say, how strong do you want this? You guys are going to enforce it, so I might as well ask you up front. So that's in process. The other thing that I've been considering as the third part of this, so we have the guidelines, we have the code, and dealing with city code. The other thing, if it was me and I owned a property, is basically to the downtown area. And then what you can do is you can identify like the Blaine House or St. Peter's that are outside the boundaries, because it's a pretty restricted area. that are outside the boundaries, you can include them. They can be specifically included to meet these codes. But if I was in that area, I would be really concerned that it was gonna cost me. So I'm exploring with the Kenai Mountain Turnagain Heritage Group, who are real big into grants, and they indicated to me, Sitka got a $500,000 grant that was specifically for construction. They had to give it back because they didn't have anybody to manage it. So that won't happen to us, and Kenai Mountain Heritage Turnagain Arm Heritage Area, they've offered to manage it. So, and I want, and because I've done a lot of grant writing, I will be the person on the board, on the commission, that will collect all the granting information and be a resource for the folks in the downtown area should they need a roof repair. We've already had another lady talk to me about she wants to return the property to a more historic look. Is there money available? So I'm trying to address that concern. So it would be the guidelines, the codes, both fire and city building codes, and money. Without addressing money, I don't know that anybody's gonna be real happy.
Right, and I do want to let you know that during planning and zoning's work session, they mentioned having a joint work session with you. So
We've
it
had
sounds
one-
like everyone's
Yeah,
together.
we've had one already, and so they wanted a little bit more information, so in talking with Jackie, the meeting is scheduled, we were gonna have it in March, but because of everything that's happening and all, we have to move it to April. So we will be having, and I'll be laying out so far what we've done. I figure this will be a long process because we need to have public input, and, you know, at least 2 years. But I wanna have everything out there on the table, and try to address as many concerns up front as possible, so if you have any, I'm your girl. Because I want this to be successful.
Sounds good, thank you.
And then, of course, we have the Seward's Day proclamation in May. And one of our goals is to improve our online presence, and Wolf Kurtz is going to be working on that on the city's new platform. So, as far as our historic structures and sites, like Sue said, we've identified 25, and one of our goals is also to track the progress of the Jesse Lee. And we're just kind of in a waiting pattern like everybody else. We'll just, you know, we're not yay, nay at this point, because there's information that nobody has, that, you know, so nobody can make an educated, you know, decision or have an educated discussion.
Good, that's actually one of my questions that I have. Have they been to you lately to give you an update? You know, the Friends of the Jesse Lee, have they come and updated you lately?
No, but they're not
part of it anymore.
No, I understand that, but they're still interested in the project. And I thought I saw them being invited last year, and I wasn't sure if they ended up attending that meeting or not.
Well, they were, and no, they did not.
Okay.
And I think at the, you know, following the emergency meeting in August, that was to determine, you know, the meeting was with council, to determine whether their contract would be extended, and it was denied. All interest dropped. I was kind of hoping that all the things they had lined up that they shared, you know, the volunteers and the equipment and everything would still happen, that as a community, you know, we could do that. But they just fell away, so.
And I know, because I noticed the bullet says track and promote
Yes.
the presentation, but what I'm hearing you saying is it's more of a track the preservation and not.
Promote, correct.
So maybe.
Correct, and that's because formally, we have not been updated formally. Behind the scenes, and anybody with common sense knows that the building is in disrepair. How bad that is, we don't know. So we don't know structurally if it's safe. We don't know what kind of money it would take to do anything constructive with it. We don't really even know how the community feels about it. You know, whether Seward wants to make, you know, millions, maybe $30 million investment in this. So,
Would it be more fair to have that bullet say track and evaluate the preservation of the Jesse Lee homes?
yes, yes.
I would move that
When we get, because that, your
Yes.
goals are on our,
Yeah.
okay. So that would be a better,
Yes. Perfect, thank you.
well, good, thanks for that update. That was helpful.
So, one of the things that we'd like to do is to promote and continue to nominate structures and sites to the Seward Local Register. Like Brown and Hawkins is a, everybody knows that Brown and Hawkins is not only a Seward sacred historical site, but they also have state recognition and national recognition. So we would like to continue in that. I don't know where Urbach stands, but I'm pretty sure they would qualify as well. So I'd like to have, look into that with Dorothy, Susie. So tracking and monitoring of the progress for the Fort Raymond subdivision, unfortunately, was going to be done by John French. And, yeah. So, we have Fred Wilkers, who's rejoined our commission. And when he was with us, he focused a lot on the Fort Raymond subdivision and an old city warehouse that is historical. And then the Tustamina Ferry, if you could get that here, and then convert it to a museum somewhere. I don't know how realistic that is, but, he's back, so that may end up being something that is looked at much further down the road. Yes, we do, yeah. Vice Chair Sue, Ward. Vice Chair Ward did point out that we do maintain we maintain a list of historic inventory, and that is submitted to the state so that they know as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I believe
Every year, that's
Valerie-
like 50 years, and every year it's updated, so it's ongoing.
Right. It's up going as we,
Age.
yeah. Okay. We have decided to identify the 10 most endangered historic properties in Seward. And so Sue touched a little bit on the historic preservation plan, which John French was a big part of writing. So the historic overlay, as she said, is directly dealt with in Chapter 8. And the agreement within the preservation plan itself is that it is to be updated every 2 to 5 years. And it's not been updated for some time. So our goal is to, be looking at that and work that into each of our years. This year it'll be focusing on the historic overlay. Down the road as we accomplish things, different parts of it will be focused on. So we want to promote economic incentives, historic preservation, and education. So economic incentives, that's really gained a lot by the tourism that come through Seward. It's also a point of pride for Alaska because it's easy for us, and we do believe this passionately, that Seward does have a lot of history. But when people come here from back east, I'm sure they're wondering, how could they think something that's 50 years old is like historic? Or, 100 years old is historic. But what they don't understand is what this was when our city began in 1903. and what we built our things out of. And so we'd like to, you know, begin to put together programs that even educating our own, you know, citizens about this, you know, so that they begin to take on a different perspective and appreciate what we do have and what the early settlers did in creating our city of Seward, as much as those that did our state. You know, Alaska's still a pretty young state, pretty exciting, and we did it without any of the modern conveniences that they had back east, you know? So, I mean, we didn't even have a highway for a long, long, long time. We had a railroad.
Can I,
Yes.
sorry to keep waiting.
No, that's good.
I've been working with Jeff and Michelle Cobble. They want to put an Alaska corner in one of their stores. And I think you'll see some things about Rockwell Kent. This is the 100th anniversary of the publishing of Wilderness, which made him famous. And so Doug Capra, of course, is always happy to do stuff like that. But I do, the Cobbles are trying to put something downtown that will be a regular sort of, be aimed at tourists, but they're gonna have an Alaska corner.
That's great.
And maybe something in the windows. I know we have an original Rockwell Kent in our museum.
Oh, nice.
Virginia Darling has 7 or 8 years old.
So I don't know if any council has any, it's very comprehensive, everything that you're doing. That's wonderful. Thanks for your report. I'll check with council first and then we'll go to Lee. Go ahead, Sue.
Well, I think it might relate to an audience member, but there's nothing in here about the cemeteries. Are you at all interested in the cemeteries?
Okay. We have not talked about the cemeteries. Have we? No.
Certainly. I think when we discussed the cemeteries, I understood that there was lots of different, yeah, there's like 3 different cemeteries, but there's different people that manage the cemetery. So it seemed like with all our other projects, it might be a little bit much, but I think it's really worthy, considering we've got a lot of, I think cemeteries are really cool.
So, I do know that the pioneers work with, we work in cleaning up the grave sites.
Okay.
And, yeah, and doing flags or flowers for Memorial Day. I also believe we're involved out here, the old
Woodlawn.
cemetery. Is that what you were referring to, Sue? or the
All
history?
of them, the history
Yeah,
in
I think
general.
there needs to be something comprehensively done with them.
The history, we're kind of lacking, right?
Well, I was just wondering if your, I mean,
We
you
haven't
know,
yet.
RBHS has an interest in that, but.
Wolf?
We've had some discussions in the past about this, but it seems like the information, my interest is always in getting information out so the public can see it, all this collected information. There's a lot of people who, there's a fair number of people who work in the back rooms of the library who have access to this, but it never seems to see the light of day because there's different rights to navigate, there's sensitivities for copyright and for individuals as far as obituaries go. I'm not sure exactly where the rights are and all that.
Just
all
curious.
that comes, where all that actually
But
gets,
I think
gets
it's a
the
good
road.
idea.
Yeah.
So-
we've had discussions about it. But
Great. And Lee
He
was
has a
first
question
too.
related to that.
Or getting.
Oh, hi. Hey, you gonna take care of it?
I think
kinda
the
what I
city, historically, has an obligation to replace Mary Lowell's gravestone since the city lost it. Not
This is
on
why I
purpose.
brought this up.
Not on purpose, but it was a WC, a good plan. This it was soft
I
stone.
remember it.
He had an idea,
Is that what we're
took it down, took it up to Anchorage, had a granite duplicate to be made. Somehow forgot, and then he didn't know where it was. And nobody, a lot of people haven't, Murray Gage has called, and every single place in Anchorage that would handle such thing, nobody knows anything about it.
Oh, boy.
So, but we have pictures of it, so it'll be easy. And as I said, the city lost it, the city should replace it. This is out in Woodlawn Cemetery, by the way. The pedestal is still there. It's just the stone that is missing. It's got a nice inscription. And let's face it, the Wolves were here before the town was here.
got a list of endangered and missing.
Yeah, that'd be quite nice.
Well, the Kenai, there's a lot of missing, according to the Kenai totem tracer, about 300 graves, which no stones and nobody's sure where there's people are buried.
So
We could tackle as a body to
Yeah,
pass
that's what I was
resolutions.
So I wonder if it's review role for historic preservation and cemetery?
Yeah.
City
Well,
cemetery?
I just, right now, interested in one
Including
thing.
specific to that?
Mary Lowell's. Gotta start somewhere.
If that came.
And the simplest thing is start
Okay,
with Mary Lowell.
all right.
And somebody find out where to get one made and stick it up.
Or apply for a grant for one?
Send me that picture, give me a copy of it. It sounds like WC was the one who was.
Sounds like his successor needs to pick up the torch.
Yeah, great idea, but.
He had a great idea, it just didn't quite work
I'll
out.
try to see what I can
But I
find
think
out.
we should
I might
add
have
to
to
the
chase him down.
future.
Well, he's been chased, I've chased him for years.
So we have 5 more minutes. Jackie, did you have?
I would just like to put out there that the cemeteries are in my budget. And so it is something that we. Myself and Parks and Rec have been working on getting all of our cemeteries platted, descriptions, putting it on GIS, and adding obituaries. It has been, like the last 3 years we've been working on it. So it is something that we do
So
have
there you
and
go.
are working on.
That, I think, should be the priority.
We should ask.
There's a current piece probably of, managing bodies and people being buried there, but there's also a historic piece, so I think that your commission probably has one on that. Now, I know, Brad, did you want to speak to the Historic Preservation Commission?
I can probably speak from here.
We don't have much time, couple minutes, yep.
Yeah, well, thank you for that.
Yep.
Good morning. Looking at the sewer's future, I just want to mention the long range to include imagination, research, and reality.
Did
And
you?
I want to just describe several things. While
So,
sewer has many differences.
so Brad, just checking with you, so this is a work session on historic preservation. Did you want to talk to
I thought it was a
the?
work session on sewers, you were working on sewer's future plans.
No, it's Historic Preservation Commission,
Oh, I'm sorry, I was.
priorities,
It's all priorities.
all the priorities.
Historic commission?
Yeah, just for the Historic Commission.
I'm sorry, I thought it was
We
on
can still
P&T
use
up
all
there.
of
I thought it was on P&T up there.
Yeah, we can.
That's good.
Okay.
But just so the grant
Well, I
will be.
thought this, just to
Yeah,
finish
go
this
ahead.
up, I thought this was entirely, as the council is trying to gain knowledge as they set their priorities for the future.
No, so what we're doing is we met with each board and commission on those priorities. So right now, we're dealing with a Historic Preservation
So
Commission.
maybe the city council meeting would be the more appropriate place. for
Yeah,
that.
sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, any final, or any more comments from the commission? You guys have a lot on your plate, just like all the other boards and commissions.
I'd just like
Go
to
ahead.
thank them all for being so thorough on everything. Historical things are really interesting to me.
We have Seward has an amazing history, and when you start looking at it, it's like really amazing. Like how Anchorage got its name, is from us. If you want the story, I'll tell you.
Tell me later.
Well, good, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And we'll end up, okay, thank you. So, everyone go use the restroom,
Yeah,
and we're
thank you.
coming back here for pictures.